Welcome to this conversation session and class from instructor Daniel McQuade. Daniel is an expert in marketing and business development. He has been building and growing lots of companies from the profit and the non-profit sectors. Hi, Han. First. He was in Santiago last January, and he had the honor to meet a few of you. I guess that Max and Pablo, well, also Chris. And he's a very, very wise person. I hope you can get to know him better and talk with him later. He has a lot of content to add to any subject, right? I mean, you can add
Sure.
a lot of knowledge to any conversation, and he's a great guy. Also, he's an instructor from Venture for All from Columbia University, which is a movement that wants to democratize entrepreneurship, and they teach entrepreneurship to everyone, everywhere in India. I mean, instructor McQuade has been all over the world. And he hasn't been that much time in his house since, he hasn't been
10 years.
Yeah, 10 years. He hasn't been so much time at home. He's now at home, but
Yep.
as you can see, I mean, everyone's at home. We want to thank our collaborators who you belong to, el Centro de Innovación de la Universidad Católica, y la Asociación de Emprendedores de Chile, ASECH. Aquí está Valentina Lagos y también Hans, que están representando a estas instituciones, y al Columbia Global Center de Santiago, al que pertenecemos con la Vivi y con Chris, y bueno, yo también soy ex alumna del Business School, y ahora los dejo con el instructor McQuade. Y cualquier pregunta, you can ask through the chat, and we're gonna have two instances for you to ask questions. One in the middle of his presentation. I mean, Dan is gonna say, like, you can ask. You can constantly ask, but please write the questions through the chat, okay? And we're gonna answer questions in the middle and then at the end. And this is gonna last 1 hour.
Terrific. Thank you, Gisela. Let me start sharing my screen so we can jump right in. There we go. Minimize this. Again, I just want to say hello, and it's been quite a journey over this past couple of months, I'm sure, for you as well as for us here in the States and our other associates worldwide. I reached out to the Global Center and spoke to Gisela and Vivian and the team down there to share some of the experiences that we were going through. We've been having a lot of these sessions, and I think that the goal that we want to share here is this pandemic. Everybody's been struggling, right? And we're trying to wrap our arms around it. What's coming next? And personally, I've struggled with that as well. So that's what we're going to talk about, is what's going on, and what do we say? Just Gisele talked a little bit about what I do. I work with Columbia Business School. I've been working with them since 2012 with the Venture for All program, which we basically take our MBA course called Launch Your Startups, and we've been delivering it to emerging economies throughout the world. We're in China, Indonesia, India, Middle East. In fact, I was just down in Chile a few months back. I also worked with the Small Business Development Center in New York City. We work with small businesses, entrepreneurs that are in the footprint of Columbia University. And recently I've been working with IBM on blockchain technology in the food business, which I'm going to get into. One of the things that I was I kind of laughed a little bit about is when I was the reason I put this up there is way I was introduced at this global IBM blockchain summit in New York City this past June is the leader, the GM of this project, introduced me as a thought leader, a visionary, an innovator, and a misfit. And I chuckled a lot because forget about the first three, but that last thing, the misfit, yes, that's what I am. I am the person that's going to make you feel a little uncomfortable, try to get you out of the sandbox, put some sand down in your shorts, those type of things. So it's the challenges that we rise up to, and we're certainly in one right now. I mean, when I came, we spoke originally with everyone, it was about what was going on in Chile back in October and November, right? And how not only maybe you weren't as shocked as the rest of the world because everybody thought everything was doing really well down there, and how that impacted, how that disruption totally impacted the Chile broken business model. And it wasn't just Chile, right? It was, Venezuela, it was in France, it was in Russia, it was in Indonesia, it was in Hong Kong. That was the most disruption we saw, was more social unrest. But we didn't see this coming. And this is the thing that I think that, you're not alone if you didn't see this coming. Early on in January, I was very concerned about this because being someone that's very strong in the seafood industry, and I work with a lot of clients that we import a lot, I realized how much China was a consumption country, and where we're supplying into China. Not everything is made in China. A lot of stuff is consumed in China as well. And, we look at certain issues, what we see as global risk. This is called pest analysis, right? And every year, the World Economic Forum, all these great business leaders get together in Davos and they say, okay, what do we think is going to happen in 2020? What's the likelihood of it happening and what's the impact? And you pretty much can see most of it was environmental, right? Water conditions, diversity, climate change, that was going to impact us. Well, when we take all of those things, we put it into that quadrant as far as its impact and likelihood of happening, one thing you don't see in that quadrant is this, infectious diseases. Where that landed was, we're not sure that's going to happen. But if it did, this is how bad it's going to be. And all those really smart people, they didn't see that, even though they were there in January, as far as what we were going to be going through. So obviously, this has come to the forefront as far as disruption that we're facing. And I think everything has been revised. And I think going forward, for years, we're going to see this as a high pest analysis risk that's going to be in every single one of these models going forward. So what do we do? And I think this is where I've struggled, is I don't know. And I'm the type of person, and I'm sure there's many of you that are the same way, that I'm going, hey, I don't understand this. I'm struggling with how this is going to happen. I'm speaking to people. I'm reaching out to everyone because I don't know. I'm the type of person, I have a sailboat and I love sailing on the ocean. I have 3 compasses. I have 4 fire extinguishers. I have GPS, 3 or 4 of them. I'm prepared. Well, we're not prepared for this. And so what I found myself doing is speaking to people like you, speaking to others out there. What am I not seeing? It's obvious we can see what's in front of us, but what am I missing? So in speaking to people, what I found out is there are 2 types of people that I'm seeing right now. Long-term vision people and short-term vision people, right? The reaction people. And I look at the long-term vision people, and I look at some of the businesses that were there before this pandemic happened, whether it was Apple, whether it was Amazon, any of these big companies, and how they look forward and how they see the future. How companies that they want to invest in are delivering true value. Not right now, but continues to have that true value down. And then we have this pandemic. And now we have people going, what would we must do to survive? And the reason I put this picture up of this young couple is they own a restaurant. And they said, you know what? I'd be so happy if I get 60% of my business back. When we come out of this, God, I hope I get 60%. And I thought about that and I said, you know what? That's the wrong way of looking at this. Instead of spending your time about cutting your menu, cutting your costs, cutting your overhead, cut, we're spending no time at figuring out how we're going to get that 40% and build on that. That's where the energy should be focused. Tell me what you're willing to let go of. What are you willing to change to go forward? So we have people that are just reacting right now. And there's not a lot of people that are looking as a vision. And I want to show you some differences about what that is. And when we look at visionary leadership, right, we could just look at Steve Jobs, right? The motivation was to make great products. It wasn't to make the most laptops or the most phones or anything. They still don't. They were motivated to make great profits. And when they went through that pivot back in the 90s, when Scully came in, that got flipped. And they became like everybody else. And we saw what happened with Apple at that point. You know, but it's a subtle difference, but it was a major difference. When we look at the ecosystem of Apple, and I love this slide, and this slide is old, but it's always, you know, what comes back to me is that Apple is not about the product, it's about the emotional connection that they have with their customer, that they continue to create value. I don't want to spend all the time going through this, but a couple of the things is the purchase is to build a relationship. They look at a customer's lifetime value of $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 over the lifetime. And we look at, you know, what are they selling us? You know, they're selling us dreams, they're not selling us a product, right? They're developing products we didn't even know we needed yet. And that was the beauty of Steve Jobs, is that he could envision what wasn't there. He could see a picture, but he said, I don't have the ability to make the picture. So he found the people to put the puzzles together, to acquire this piece, acquire that piece, acquire this piece, to make the picture for him. That's what a visionary does. You don't have to do it. All you have to do is see it. And then from there, find out the people to make it happen, right? So collaboration was one of the big keys in the success of Apple. It's no different than Tesla, you know, Elon Musk. Everybody thinks he makes, you know, high performance, you know, e-vehicle. No, he doesn't. That's the result of a vision. When you buy a car from Tesla, it's the first time ever that when you bought a car and you drove it off the lot, it got better. When you look at the software updates, the over-the-air software updates, when you buy that car, it gets better. It's constantly improving the car for you. No other car vehicle in the world can do what Tesla does as far as updating and making your car better. Every time I bought a car off the lot, the value went down, and it continues to go down. But for Tesla, it was a vision much more about that. And I can remember back in 2012 when he said, yeah, I'm going to build an e-car. It's going to be costing $125,000. And everybody laughed at him. Well, nobody's laughing now because he had a vision. Even though you have Ford, you have Chevy, you have all of these major car companies, Mercedes, BMW, they were about living today. They were living model to model. They weren't 10 years out, 20 years out. So this is the type of visionary. Jeff Bezos. You know, one of the things I have to say about this guy is that when everybody's looking 2 or 3 quarters out, he's looking 6 to 8 quarters out, 10 quarters out. Everybody's here, he's looking way down the road. You know, his whole vision of SpaceX, right? SpaceX, he says, we're going to run out of stuff here. You know, what could we do? He sees that as, it's probably not going to happen in my lifetime, but he sees that as an opportunity. Everybody thought he was crazy when they talked about drones 5, 6 years ago. They're not laughing now, are they? So what is the difference between, you know, somebody who's a reactionary and a visionary? A reactionary can tell you what they see, right? And when we go back in time and we say the first Fortune 500 list back in 1955, and these are the top global companies in the world, today there's only 55 left. What happened to them? What happened to them is that they stayed where they were. They didn't think about tomorrow. They lost creating that value for their customer, and their value left them, right? And a visionary will tell you what they don't see. They're going to see the gap, what's missing, and then fill that gap. With what? They don't know yet, but that's what they're going to create. And for me, I look at these guys, you know, Microsoft, Google, all of these guys, that's the difference. So what's a visionary? Well, they're a misfit, right? They can visualize things easy. Maybe not know how to do it, but they can see it. How to do it, they leave that up to someone else. But when you talk to somebody that's a visionary, you know them right away because they're seeing stuff you don't see and you're intrigued. They can imagine the future possibilities. But the power is they can actually even explain it to you. That's a visionary. So they imagine things that others can't. And when you have that capability, there's two other components that come in. Just having the vision is not enough. So when we look, it's like, what is the best chance of you making it? Is that when you have this vision and you've got this strategy, right? And just, wow, I could do it. Then do you have on your team or in your company, the organization to take that strategy and do it? That's when you win. If you say yes to that, that's when you win. So when you have a strategy, you may not have the organization, get the organization. You can find these smart people, they're out there. But recognize that if you don't have those links, get the links. That's the pieces of the puzzle you need to put together. And that's where Steve Jobs was brilliant. And that's why they were highly, highly successful. So effective strategy, along with the organization, you go. You can have a great strategy and not have the people, it's going nowhere. Or you can have great people working for you, but there's no innovation. I was just reading an article that was telling me that if a CEO or a company leadership, C-level leadership, is not spending 25 to 30% of their work week thinking about innovation, you guys ought to quit because they're not going to be around. That is what's needed today. So obviously there's different steps we can do, right? And this is kind of what I flow into, is that, I look at design thinking and I say, okay, the faster we can come up with our ideas, the faster and sooner we can evaluate them, we can refine them, and then zero on the best solution. And the best solution may be going out and getting people to help you with, within the organization. Or, and then from here, we create that business model, the business model canvas. We begin to identify what that idea is. We're fostering it now. We're going to put together this fluid canvas. And then from there, we've already found out who this customer is, right? And what's the lean innovation? Can we get them into the process and make this happen fast? That's what happens with the visionary. It takes it into those types of steps. So one of the things I want to share with you, and I will share this with the people at the Global Center. When I was coming down to Chile in January, I was preparing for the class, and I actually found this white paper from the Accenture, and it was called Disruption, Not Need, Be an Enigma. So they came up with this disruptability index. And I'm going to go through this, but I'm going to suggest you guys download this and read it. I'm just going to give you my high points on it. There's 4 parts of it, right? And it says basically that, periods of rapid change, a new strategy is required. One enables a company to act in the face of disruption with confidence. It's called rotating to the new. And it has 4 pieces. Grow your core, transform the core, scale the new, pivot wisely. Let's go through those. So I'm going to give you an example of a company that's been doing this, right? And then I'm going to talk to you about companies that are doing it through this pandemic. So the ones that's been doing it for a while is a company called Procter & Gamble, which I'm sure you all heard of. And they produce a product called Tide. And this is the #1 laundry detergent in the United States, by far. 65, 70% share of market. But they were upset because they manufacture this and they get it into the supply chain, but they've never had the relationship with the customer other than spending billions of dollars in advertising. But they really didn't know who the customer was. So they were always dealing with the middlemen, and you know what? They got fed up with it. So one of the first steps in rotating to the new is something called growing the core. So through a period of disruption, you look at your existing business, right? You look at your existing business model, your existing customers. It's, how can I grow them, right? And what they said is and this is one of the things I took away from it, says, what could we give innovative to our existing customers to keep them and make them even more loyal? And so Procter & Gamble with Tide, they developed and actually had the patent for developing the Tide Pod process. And it just made using their Tide more convenient. Right? It's also much more profitable for them, believe it or not, to come up with this. So they took their existing customers and said, let's grow this. What can we do with it? So the second thing they did, it's called transformation, right? Can we transform? Can we take those existing customers and move them from one relationship into another? So what they did is they were one of the first companies to use technology to increase their profitability with Amazon. They were one of the first companies to create what we call the Tide Dash buttons. This was an Amazon product. You take this dash button, you put it on your washing machine. When you were out of those Tide Pods or running out, you press that little white button. It was Bluetooth. And within an hour, if you lived in a Prime Now, or 2 days, you'd get the pods delivered to your house. Brilliant. Embracing the new technology. They did it again. They said, you know what? Let's try a subscription model, even for those who don't want to use the dash button. So they tried a subscription model. They already got their ass kicked in that when Dollar Shave Club was fighting them with their Gillette product. So now they embraced it and said, let's create this because customers like subscription models. It's also profitable for us. So that was step 2, transformation. Then they went into step 3. I said, we got a skill to do. We got to do things different because we're seeing different things going on. So they actually come up with Tide Spin, which is the Uberization of laundry. You know what? Don't even bother with the Tide Pods. We'll actually pick up your laundry, we'll wash it, and we're going to bring it home for you. So they looked at existing relationships, especially with a certain demographic that was younger, not their traditional one, but going into another one. They said, what if we took a new innovation for this product and connect to this generation that doesn't have the time looking for the convenience? Can we monetize that? So they scaled to the new. They said, let's try this. We know customers like this in other categories. Will it work for us? The next thing they did, and this was the one that I really love, it's called Pivot Wisely. This is disruption, what we're in right now. And look what Tide did. They found the right pace and the timing to shift to a new business opportunity. Because they had this reputation with their existing customers that they trusted them and had brand loyalty, they said, if you trust us to wash your clothes, will you trust us to dry clean your clothes? So they opened up these Tide dry cleaners here in the United States. And it's no accident they're located next to a Starbucks because that was the customer archetype that they wanted. And they wanted to share that. They're young, have to go to work, don't have time, looking convenience, willing to spend a little extra more, brand loyal. So they created Tide dry cleaners, and they are opening these things up rapidly. This just started maybe about 2-3 years ago, and now they're located everywhere. In fact, here's a picture of the Tide dry cleaner delivery truck that picks up my dry cleaning and brings it back to me. So here's a multi-billion international company that took these 4 states and continued to progress with it. So let's think about this a little bit, right? And I'm like, what about today? What's going on? You know, how should companies be pivoting? And I looked at, let's just take cars and what's going to happen with cars. And we look over the next 5 years and I say, okay, autonomous cars, how fast are they going to grow? It's going to be significant. I have a 9-year-old son. By the time he's 16, I don't think he's going to need to have a driver's license. I think he's going to have an autonomous car. Even Elon Musk says, to be clear, consumers will still be able to buy a Tesla, but the clearing price will rise significantly as autonomous cars that can function as robo-taxi are several times more valuable. So we're looking at this market to grow from 5 billion to 60 billion within 10 years. It's going to happen. Why do I bring this up? And I'm going to share something with you guys. I'm speaking to you from my home office. And if you see that star on the screen, that's where I'm sitting right now. That's my building, the small one, not those big ones. Those big ones are just what's being built across from me right now. Hopefully the construction noise isn't that loud. But I want you to look at the first 5, 6 stories. And on the first 5, 6 stories, what's there? And what's there is parking decks. This is building number 1. So they're going up 5 or 6 stories. And I look at it and I go, okay, 25% of this building, 20 to 25% of this building is going to be used for parking. So we got the 15 stories above it that are Class A office space that they're going to get $100 a square foot or whatever the number, and the rest is going to be put in cars. But when we think about the future, and not that far away, how many cars are going to be there? How many cars are going to actually use those spaces in 10 years? What are they going to be able to do to convert this space here into office space? Because it's ramps. I don't know how they convert that. So they're going to have 20% of their space in 10 years that's going to be underutilized. Did the designers think about that today? Should they have? What about this? Autonomous cars, how is this going to change how we drive, but also how we build roads, highways, the infrastructure? You're not going to need streetlights. You're not going to need stop signs. It's all going to be autonomous, and this is not that far away. Now, looking at the IT of things, right? And some of you guys are involved in it. I think, I don't know if Rodrigo is on the call or not, but you are looking at connecting sensors on manned vehicles. This is going to happen now. This is what's going to happen in Milan, Italy. They were one of the epicenters of this virus over in Italy. They're going to take 35 kilometers of streets and turn it over to cyclists and pedestrians. New York City just made the same announcement. New York City is going to be a temporary one. This one here is going to be a permanent one. Now, how fast is this going to happen? It's going to happen very fast. But the reality check is, how much money do these cities, towns have in order to do this? Because budget's going to be cut. So is this a quasi-private, public process? Absolutely think that's what's going to happen. So, but if you don't think this is going to happen quick, it is. So who has this technology with smart sensors for these roadways, right? To be able to let you know where the bikes are, what's going on, to drop off, the autonomous vehicles. Is anybody thinking about this? Why not? I look at the business model canvas, and I've always, when I teach this class, I always say this is a fluid, very fluid model. This is why there's only 55 of those Fortune 500s left, because they never went back and changed their business model. And what happened was they became ordinary, and people saw the future, and they took the risk, mostly like all of you, to be able to create something new. So what do we see happening? What's going on with this pandemic that's significantly different is that today, it's not B2B or B2C. It's me to be. The consumer is in charge. They're creating and consuming their own data. We're just sitting there listening, right? Trying to understand, what are they saying? What are they doing? How are they doing it? And we need to understand them versus forcing them to understand us. So you must foster that relationship and develop it. And I strongly think that this is where the beginning of the future of entrepreneurship innovation needs to be. It should be there already, but a lot of people don't consider it this way. Let's take, for example, what's going on right now. So Peloton, I'm sure all of you are familiar with it. They just reported, I think 3 days ago, that they had 23,000 people in one class, okay? And their stock is up over 60% since the middle of March. Now, we've been in this pandemic since March, April, May, so we got 60 days, 90 days, right? What about these people? This is who you go to a spin class. You want to go to SoulCycle? $40 a class for one class. Lifetime or Spin or the Equinox, they have these spin classes. You want a membership? You got to do it. So do I buy a bike and pay Peloton $100 a month for a subscription? Well, think about this. 23,000 participants. Let's take SoulCycle. If SoulCycle did 3 classes a day, 50 people in those classes, It would take them 120 days to get that many participants into that class, just one of those studios. This is one class, one day, 1 hour. So this is something, again, growing your core, taking your existing customer, can we change them over? Let's look at the airlines, right? Now I'm a frequent flyer with Delta. I love Delta. All my travel, like Giselle says, I haven't been home this many days on the road since 2012. But when we look at taking 2 to 3 years to recover from the coronavirus, what should these airlines do? So we think what's going to happen is the low-cost providers are in big, big trouble, right? For a company like Delta, do they reconfigure their planes? This is what I'm hearing, is they're actually going to be putting on more of the better seats versus taking them out. Why is that? Because they know that the frequent business traveler is twice as profitable as an existing. They know that on some flights in the United States domestic, that the business passenger is 75% of the profits. So if you're Ed Bastian, CEO of Delta, do you say, wait a minute, instead of having 12 seats in first class on a domestic flight, let me go to 20. Let me open that up because I'm going to be having empty seats in the aisles. But my business travelers, I want to really, what do? How do you see this fit? Do you grow your core this way? This is Mark Zuckerberg said while using his new Facebook Messenger video product, the world was already trending in this direction before COVID-19. No kidding. Well, we just saw our Zoom, right? And we know about security issues, but let's leave that aside. Zoom became a breakout star. Saturday Night Live did the first Zoom Saturday Night Live. They were the true winner. But let's go back a little bit because Facebook Messenger started in 2009. 2009, I think about 11 years ago. And now we just think, oh, let's change it from a messenger to a video product. They just launched last week Workplace from Facebook, a competitor to Zoom. How about Google Hangouts, 2013? They were going to kill that this year. They were going to kill it. Guess what they just did? They just started Google Meet, just launched, competitor to Zoom. We can look at Verizon just acquired Blue Jeans, all right? Epic Games, they just acquired a House Party. And so the shift, because of this pandemic, is really changed. Look at how we're meeting, right? How many of I'm on these things every single day. It's going to totally change the way I travel to deliver the VFA Columbia business. But Zoom's been around since 2011. On March 15th, they had 10 million daily average users. A month later, 300 million. They were positioned at the right place at the right time. How much of this is going to stay going forward, right? We could look at concerts. The concert industry is going to lose $9 billion. Live Nation, he's got to give up his $3 million, good. Live Nation and Ticketmaster are being sued because people that bought tickets are saying, yeah, we're going to keep your money until the concert comes. No, we want our money back. So here they are. An industry is going to take a long time to recover. But I don't know if you guys are into this, but my 9-year-old is. Fortnite. They just did a thing with Travis Scott, who's a rapper, right? They had concurrent players, 12.3 million, set a record. The previous one was, I think, last year with Marshmello or something like that. Holy crap. I mean, how does that change everything? How does that change the concert industry? What is Live Nation or Ticketmaster, how are they going to pivot? Are they going to be able to see and do this? Here's another one. Trolls World Tour. Instead of coming out in theaters like the original Trolls, they went straight to streaming. And within 3 weeks, they had 5 million digital rentals. They got 95 million in fees in 3 weeks. The original, which is Trolls, it took them 5 months in the theaters to do this. Now, typically, before the agreement is with these movie studios that they will put it into theaters for a period of time before they agree to release it on the streaming services. Jeff Shell from NBC Universal said, you know what? Says, not anymore. We're going to release movies both in the theater and on premium video on demand at the same time. This is the way people want it. But you got AMC says to Jeff, really? I guess what? We're the biggest chain in the world. And if you do that, Jeff, we're never going to play any of your films in any of our theaters. Well, if I'm Jeff, I tell AMC, good luck with that, because you're about ready to go into bankruptcy. And it's not about AMC. It's about what I said before. Who's in charge? Is your customer is in charge. You know, you need to listen and understand how they want to consume this product. AMC is not NBC Universal customer. They share the same customer, which is the person, the kid that wants to see that movie. All right. So it's no different than Procter & Gamble with Tide having to deal with a supermarket to sell their detergent. Know who your customer is. Build it that way. Just for an example here, Rolling Stone, they decided, you know what? We got some problems. We're Live Nation. So the Saudi investment firm said, we're going to give you some money. They also bought a soccer team. Bargain hunting, now's the time, I guess, when you have money. Let me explain something to you here. Right now, historically, in bad times like this, have been better for seed and early stage financing. Some of the best companies were founded during times like this because they pivoted to the new. They rotated to the new. Here's some examples of it. Cheetah, which they used to offer wholesale delivery to restaurants and small businesses. Because of this crisis, they pivoted to consumers at home. This was yesterday. They got 36 million. Fast raised, this was last week, 20 million of Series A, because they figured out a way to get restaurants and small businesses onto a platform so they could pivot to a digital online service. And this other company, they just raised a whole bunch of seed money because they are really good at capturing the metrics of people using e-commerce. So number 3, what I want to talk to you about is scale the new. So I know some of you are on that are in the medical field. Now, this is a company that's out in Denver, Colorado. The week of March 16th, they did 4,000 in-home visits for physical therapy, different therapies like that. They go to the homes to do this. On March 23rd, the following week, they did over 3,000 telemedicine visits. So they had a drop. They went from 4,000 down to 3,000. Over the weekend from March 20th to March 22nd, they pivoted from in-house to telemedicine. They trained their staff. They trained the parents. They trained the caregivers of the kids. They actually delivered some tablets to those kids or parents that did not have the technology. They showed them how to do it. They did that in a weekend. The following week, they did over 5,000 telemedicine visits. They did more telemedicine visits than they did in their original business model. Why? Why did they increase? Well, schools closed. So the schools that were doing it in the schools for the kids weren't able. Outpatient clinic closed. But their ability was the speed adaptation, speed to shelf, and being able to do this and do it fast. Actually, one of my sons is a physical therapist. He's in management with this company, and it's amazing what's going on. So we look at telemedicine, scaling to the new. This just happened yesterday. This Austin-based company operated a virtual healthcare platform for providers. They raised 24 in a Series B, right? Because of the pandemic. Merck, they're going to take a $2 billion hit because there's no people going to doctor's office where the doctors have to administer some of the medicines that Merck supplies. But we can look at UPS. They actually have a drone program called Flight Forward. They're partnering with CVS, a pharmacy. And they actually started in this community in Florida that has 135,000 residents that are over 55, which, by the way, are the ones who need prescriptions, most of them. So they're actually using drone deliveries to there. So that's scaling to the new. That's saying, okay, there's vulnerability here. How can we scale? The restaurant industry. We expect 100,000 restaurants to close forever. in the United States. Prior to this, there was companies that had ghost kitchen. Now, a ghost kitchen is a building that has all the kitchen needs. You need the ovens, the proofers, the broilers, and everything else. But they have multiple chefs that actually rent this, prepare their meals, and ship it to customers at home. Well, guess what happened? So when we look at it, we say, okay, should a restaurant that's probably not going to be able to open up, can that chef who has a reputation become successful in a ghost kitchen? And this is something that's been going on. This is this one company called Kitchen United. Kitchen United, we bring together a variety of great restaurants in a single location. Look who's funding this, Google Ventures. Or here's another one, Cloud Kitchens, right? Delivery-only brand partners. Guess who's funding this? Travis Canalman. Yep, the guy from Uber took his money out of Uber and also convinced the Saudi fund. They put in $400 million to this. So if you're in a restaurant business or you're in the consumer business, how do you pivot to the new? We look at working from home. I know we're all doing that right now. Is this going to stay? And when we look at it, we can go back in time and look at Steve Jobs, and he says creativity comes from spontaneous meetings. He wasn't a fan of it. And everybody's saying, it's a little bit overrated. And, we look at co-working spaces, like WeWork or spaces here in the United States. How are they going to do? Everybody's wondering they're going to get hurt. Well, I don't think that's going to happen, because when we look at the model of how that person lives in their new environments, they live in shared spaces. They're living in a single studio apartment, but all the new construction, especially where I'm living down here in Raleigh, these are pictures of the common spaces for all you single people, young professionals. So they do not want to be working alone. They want to work in they want to coexist. So we looked at this, and it was 2016. There was an issue with PricewaterhouseCoopers losing a lot of millennial workers. They did a survey and they said, you know what, we really don't want to come to the office. We would rather be able to work from home or work in a co-working space. But what they said is, let's do it. And they actually were able to save $850 million a year by reducing the cost of office space, but also how much it costs them to pivot. And we hire people all the time, the training costs. So you got to look at those types of things. I'm just going to go by this for the sake of time. Before I do this, I'd like to take a couple of questions if I could. Do we have any questions? Giselle?
Yeah, sorry. So we have one question. We have a question about how much did it cost to rent the Troll movie versus how much would they pay going to the movies, to a theater?
Going to a theater, you would have to pay anywhere from 10, depending what city you're in. A ticket would cost $10 to $15, right? And the movie studio has to share that revenue with the theater. So it's actually highly more profitable because of the streaming costs are less, and the revenue share, there's a greater revenue share that goes to NBC Universal.
I was checking on the news, and they said that they were renting it for $19.99, which is a high price for a rental.
Yeah, but you have 4 people in the room that are watching it, right? Yeah. So you have to look at household, because it's not just one kid. Usually it's 2 or 3 kids, or it's a family that's watching the whole thing. So you've got 4 tickets for that price. So, any of the new releases, they want to get $20 or, whatever, which is perfect. So the amount of, Netflix streaming has just been astronomical. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, we have another question from another person, which is, what's your vision in terms of the speed adjustment and the first in the market paradigm and the risk on making mistakes, because you didn't have enough information and you didn't have enough time to think your strategy? And disruption times, what's the role of the gut and the instinct? I'm
that person, okay? But I ask a lot of questions. So even when I take my gut instinct, I go and I ask smart people, what do you think? So I spend a lot of time going out and getting people involved to help me, not justify or verify, but I want to hear that. So for example, last week I was on 6 investor calls. 5 out of the 6 investor calls were really good. One, the guy was a real jerk, but just speaking to them and showing them the business plan. Now, what came out of those 5 calls, speaking to them, was insights. I got free advice that I didn't have to pay for, right? And some of the advice was repetition, about what influence they gave me. So what you do is, even though you got to go on the speed to shelf, invest in networking and speaking to people to confirm your suspicions, right? To bounce this off of. Most of the time, I got to tell you, my gut feeling is usually right. I have to make some slight pivots, but I do go out and I just seek the advice of people.
Another question. I'm in the water business, which is a basic need. So it's not something about comfort or something that you choose to have. Have you seen changes in utilities besides Uber or Airbnb, like Wi-Fi sharing or anything else?
Yes. Yep. There's been a big, I'm in the food industry. Food is a necessity. And, the shifts I've seen in people in getting necessities, whether it's toilet paper, whether it's bottled water, about how to reach out to these people and taking a traditional model and pivoting to a way that how do we get these products to them? So absolutely, there's been significant shifts in needs. It's not just wants.
What about if you don't have cash? How do you manage if you don't have access to financing? Because all these examples you gave seem to have a lot of budget.
Well, I'm going to show you some that don't, right? And I'm going to show you that you can minimize this. Right now, there's methods of opportunity that people are willing to invest in at pre-revenue, that even if you don't have the money, it's about putting the connections of the pieces together, right? So if you've got the right team together, then it makes it easier to get the money and the funding. Now, can you do it where you can utilize these suppliers or these partners to share this revenue with you? Yes, right? So that is a concern, because everybody's going, I'm not, right now, how much money is out there that people are going to give to you? But if you've got an innovative idea that's talking about what's going on now and how that's going to continue going forward, it's significant. I'm going to show you an example of that. In fact, I'm going to show you something I'm personally involved with right now on that. Okay.
Excellent. So maybe we can continue with that.
Yeah, let's continue with that. And please stay on. I know we're running a little bit long, but I'll stay on to answer these questions. Okay. So I'm going to go back and share. So I was going to play this video, but in the sake of time, it's about 2 or 3 minutes. But about 2 years ago, I began a project in the seafood industry to use a blockchain solution to solve 3 problems in seafood: fraud, safety, and lack of sales. When I came up with the model, which I'll show you, I came up with a use case that I showed to IBM. And basically what I was able to do, I said, what if I was able to capture data, IoT, out at sea with software and some hardware, and take that information and put it on a blockchain ledger. Then I could have that person share that, give me permission to see it. And then I would take that product and I would actually produce it, share my information with my supplier. They would also put their information on the blockchain ledger, and we'd bring it all the way to the restaurant. And then the restaurant at that point could begin to speak to the consumer. So blockchain ledger, without going into it in detail, is immutable, which means the data that's in there is locked down. Nobody can change it. Well, in the seafood business in the United States, there's a severe amount of fraud because 90% of the seafood we bring into the United States is imported. And it goes through 6-7 degrees of separation before the consumer actually eats it. So by doing this blockchain ledger, and I'm going to show you an example of it, we were able, for the first time ever in the world, actually create a use case. However, I wasn't able to do this alone. I was able to get all this great information together on a blockchain ledger and bring it to the consumer sitting at the table. but how did I get that consumer to share that information? So basically what I said, I need to understand that consumer. So doing an empathy map, I found exactly who my target audience was. And I created this empathy map. And I wanted to know, how does she think and feel? What does she see? What does she say and do? What does she hear? How is she influenced? What's her pain? What's her gain? Once I understood that, I said, okay, I know what to create. I know what to tell her. I know what she's looking for. I want trust. I want sustainability. I want low environmental impact. I have an education. I have the enough money. Seafood is healthy for me. So we found out exactly what she wanted to do. From there, we launched this program. And we wanted, not only wanted to tell the story to the consumer, we wanted that consumer to share the story. So here's one of those partnerships. I couldn't do this, but I found somebody, a strategic partner. I said, can you build me a consumer engagement piece? And so we were able, right at the point of sale at the restaurant, have the customer scan a code, and immediately on the phone, they could see the journey of these scallops in real time. They could actually see it, videos off the boat, hear the captain speaking. They could see the exact location where it came out of the water, how it got shipped to the distributor, and how it got shipped to the restaurant. Now, we also wanted the customer to share this with their friends, social influencing, build out advocates, because the more stories we could tell, the better. So we actually got the customers to engage with their Instagram accounts. When we ran this, we ended up having a 33% lift on our trial over 3 months. Significant success, right? We can't wait to push this open. But to your point, when you asked that question, Giselle, I was able to connect the dots. I had the guy on the boat, I had the person with the software, I had the production people, I had the distributor, I had the restaurant, I had Producers Market to tell the story, and I collaborated with IBM to do it. So it was a matter of putting all the pieces. This did not cost a lot of money because it was IoT. It was the ability to put the communication together. Then the virus hits. So now we got all these restaurants closed. I'm not selling these restaurants any scallops anymore. But what we're seeing was a significant shift in consumer behavior. For over a month and a half now, 2 months, consumers are still eating seafood, but they're buying it online. They're buying it on e-com. They're saying, I want the portions delivered to my home. A couple of these companies that I deal with, Omaha and Alaskan Steak, the seafood company, they cannot keep up with it. So we've seen a dynamic shift in consumer behavior. We've seen consumers go from 11% of them shopping online for groceries to 47% in 3 weeks. We've seen the amount of apps like at Walmart grocery app being downloaded at a significant increase. So I look at this and I go, okay, so we got to change the consumer behavior. It takes 21 days to create a habit, 90 days to create a lifestyle. So what if I rotate to the new? So myself and some partners, we're going to create a platform called No Seafood. And on No Seafood, we're going to take all of these really good products, salmon, tuna, cod, scallops, and shrimp, from people we know are sustainable, are all natural, they're not using any ingredients, people we can trust. And we're going to promote them on an e-com platform just for seafood. And every one of these companies is going to be on a blockchain ledger so the consumer can see everything. So I'm partnering with these people. And this is how it's going to flow. We're going to have them shipped to one location. We're going to pick it up, bring it to our location. We're going to have the orders come in via e-com. We're going to do the fulfillment, and we're going to ship it out with our logistic partners. The market sizing, we feel there's 31 million households that fit our demographic. If we got 1% of them, 312,000, who order 3 times a year at $100 or $129 an order, we have ourselves a $75 million company. And what the beauty of this is, very low startup capital, because it's an IoT company, right? We're taking something that exists and we're changing it. So we look at it and we say, how do you pivot during this time? And again, for us, it was about the collaboration aspect of it that we wanted to take. So we started with this design thinking. Can we have something that just popped up? Can we change? What does that business model look like? What is the customer expectation? What are we building it for? We're building it for them. We're not building it for us. Can we get them into the model? What are they doing now and how do they like it? And can we rotate to that solution? So again, smart people find smart people. I think, Perry, you've heard me say that a number of times in the class, right? And we have a great strategy, but organizational effectiveness, I had to find the right partners in order to pull this off. So this is what we're seeing. And this is why you're seeing some of these early stage startups get this incredible amount of funding, because they have pivoted their business model dealing with what we're going on right now. So remember that, reacting to this business, and versus seeing how the business is going to change, those are the ones that we're going to look back at 5 years or 10 years from now and go, wow, they saw something we didn't see. And that's the difference between somebody who's reaction to this pandemic and someone who's imagining what other people are not seeing. So hopefully that explains that a little bit, but that is where this just got presented. I said, you know what? Is now the time to do an e-com model on seafood? Is frozen the new fresh? I got people that are getting used to buying e-com. It's going to take a year for these restaurants to get back in business. So do I go out of business or do I pivot to the new? So there's a bunch of you, and I've looked at your businesses, that whether you're in healthcare, whether, I know if the guys from Flow are on, I was checking your website about online classes and training. People are connected to this. Are 100% of them going to stay? No. Is 20%? My gosh, 20% is a big number. So what you've got to do is begin to, the first step in this process for everyone that's listening is communication. First step in this process is community. Am I thinking the right way? Does this make sense? And speak to the people. And then don't work within a silo. Find the key partners that can help you put this together, especially at this stage. Okay? So let's take some more questions.
Any other questions? Okay, so here's one. Recommendations for key partners if you are from Chile.
Well, there's, you got to just don't think Chile, think global, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, every one of the suppliers that I'm dealing with the seafood, they're all international. They're Peru, they're Chile, Norway, they're all over the world. And you know what? That's the difference, is that there may be somebody else that's thinking the same way you are. That's the beauty of like LinkedIn, right? Is networking and connecting and speaking to these people. So I am positive there are partners down there. You just got to seek them out. If you have the right strategy, right? Make sure your strategy, if you don't have the organizational effectiveness, you got to find those type of people. Okay.
Now they're going to ask you if they can partner with you, Daniel. Sure.
You know what? This has been an incredible experience, going through what I've been going through. I've been working with some companies that are reacting to e-com. They're not doing it with a vision, and it's a waste of time and it's a waste of money because they don't see the big picture. Right? Everybody's rushing the market, but they're not seeing the big picture. And that's why you looked at some of these telemedicine companies, right? And some of these entertainment companies, and they're going, oh, this is going to change, right? And that's the advantage. What are you willing? Don't try to save a business don't go backwards. It's not going to be normal. Nothing is going to be normal again. Pivot forward.
They're asking if you see a more automated processing in every industry, less humans, more machines.
Absolutely. I think you're going to see robotics increase. I think in production facilities, it's going to be changing. I think human behavior, whether you're working, in a facility with a plant, that's certainly going to change. But what do people need when that happens, right? They need technology. They need platforms. They need training, right? You still have the human element that's going to be in there. What can you provide? What's missing? Those are what you've got to come up with. Yes, that's going to happen, okay? What's missing? What do people need to make that happen? That's why you looked at that medicine company getting that 36 million yesterday. It's because they had a platform that somebody else says, that's what we need, in order to take advantage of this. Because telemedicine's not going away. It's not going to go away. I spoke to my son, and he told me that the CEO of their company said, plan on us continuing telemedicine for at least the next 12 to 18 months, and we expect that 30% of our business forever is going to be going to telemedicine.
There's another question about how do you see the consultancy industry changing if you sell your know-how and no one's an expert now in these topics?
How do you become an expert, right?
Right.
Are you a consumer of data, of knowledge? Like everything I showed you guys today, I've been reading the crap out of everything for the past 3 weeks, right? Some of the stuff I showed you today, I just put in today because stuff is moving as fast. So you got to be, whatever your vertical is, you got to find the blogs, you got to find the newsletters, and you got to see what's happening. And there's so many, whether it's Fast Company or Finamize or Quartz or TechCrunch or Crunchbase, see what's going on around you. You got to get out of that silo. And you're going to probably go, it makes sense, right? So you've got to become almost addicted to consuming information about what's going on right now and be able to put the pieces of the puzzle together. If you see the picture, you don't have to put it, you have to think like Jobs. I mean, everything, when you look at the required to make the glass, how he made the cases, the companies, everything they bought. Apple has bought 100 different companies over the years the only one company they bought was a brand, that was Beats. Everything else was a component company to make the devices.
Dan, we want to thank you. We want to thank you, and we want to tell the audience that we're going to accept, there are 2 more questions and we're going to be closing now.
Okay.
But so there's 3 questions. And the first one is about, for an online platform, would you recommend making one from scratch with programmers or use websites like Upwork or Fiverr where you want to connect the customer with?
For speed to shelf, I would collaborate with an existing pieces of the platform, right? It all depends on the depth and the scale of what you're doing. If it's a very simple, it's so easy to do, and that could be your phase 1, your version 1, version 2, because if you're going to be touching with the customer, you got to make sure you have the metrics, et cetera, for that relationship. You got to stay in touch with your customers. The entire platform that we're building with that No Seafood, we're a food technology company. That's who we are. We're selling seafood, but that's not our core business. Our core business is how we get logistics and supply and communicate to that customer to eat more seafood, all right? So that's what we are. We're a food tech company that sells seafood. That's our core business. That's what we're going to excel at. Okay, any other questions?
About telemedicine. There's the issue of liabilities. What if there's a malpractice? Who pays the blame? Is the insurance?
You'd have to speak to your insurance company, but how different is that from physical, right? How different is it? It's not any different from existing malpractice policies as well. Are they going to shift? And are going to be new ways that the underwriters are going to rewriting it? Absolutely. But it doesn't mean the difference if I go in and have some surgery and the doctor screws up, there's malpractice insurance for that. So it's the same model. It's going to change. So somebody, an insurance company, there's a business right there, right? Telemedicine insurance, malpractice insurance company. There's a business that somebody's going to be writing. Do you don't think any insurance company right now is already starting to write those policies? Yes, that's happening. Absolutely happening.
And the last question is about skills. Which skills do you think that startups need the most for now? And companies in general.
Skills. And I will say this, and without holding back, I know I'm not the smartest person on this Zoom call. And that's okay, because my skill is finding smart people. And I can see it Sometimes I can't draw it, right? I can have it in my head, but I can't take it from my head and I can't draw it on a piece of paper, but I can explain it to people. That's my skill as an entrepreneur, that I can connect the dots. So I don't need to have an abundance of skills. I will find people that are smart there. I don't need to be a blockchain expert. There's somebody out there to do it. I didn't need to be a consumer engagement expert. I found somebody that could do it. Right? So the skill set you need is to understand how to network, right? How to be the visionary to connect the pieces. And the pieces are out there. You just got to find them. You know, it's no different than a 1,000-piece puzzle. You just put it on the table. You're searching for that perfect fit. Sometimes it takes that piece, it takes you an hour to find it. Sometimes you find it in a minute. You know, what's the skill that you use to find that piece? Did it match? Did the colors lined up? Did the corners line up? It's the same thing.
Everyone wants to thank you so much, and they want to know if you have a question for them.
I do. I think my biggest question is, based on my last visit down there, you know, I made it a point, and I actually went out with someone on this Zoom call with his uncle to go out into, I wanted to go to downtown Santiago. I wanted to see firsthand what was going on and why. I wanted to understand it, okay? Because when speaking to, you know, the meeting that we had, Giselle and some other meetings down there, I saw where everybody's head was, and I needed to understand, you know, what was the next steps and change. And so my question is, with this pandemic that we've had, you know, how is it positioned, how you feel about the social unrest? Are there a level? Is this one above it? How are you looking at the opportunity here? I think that's my big question, is the social unrest and the uncertainty of the economy prior to the pandemic, and now we got the pandemic along with it, is this causing you even more stress? Which one will recover first or better? So if somebody could just fill me in on that.
Yeah, who wants to answer? Do you want?
Well, let me do a couple here. Let me ask Chris.
Okay.
Chris, if you would jump in, then probably Julian, and then I want to hear from Perry.
Chris.
Hi, Daniel. I'm working with the Columbia Center, so I don't consider myself an entrepreneur, but how do I see it in terms of with the whole relationship with the protests that we had before? I think this is a much further reaching. I think part of the protest that was being part of the reason why people are protesting had to do a lot with social inequality. And I think what's coming up now will only serve to expand inequality, so we'll give more reason for more protest. Now, how to make an opportunity? That's a great question. I think everybody on this call is really wondering about that. I saw somebody mention that to be selling rocks because rocks are what people use to throw around protesting. That's actually a very unique solution. It's a joke, of course, but I think we need to be thinking more along the lines of how we're going to respond to this social protest and how we can provide some type of solution to help these people get to where they need to go.
Mm-hmm. I also think that, you know, the two factors is that with the protests was more centralized to Santiago, right? Where maybe the people throughout the rest of the country were distanced from actually being close to it and understanding the depth of it, you know, but now with the pandemic, it's broad reaching, right? And it's no different than, you know, when we had 9/11 in New York City, it was New York City, and the people weren't as impacted as were in Los Angeles or Boston, that type, because they weren't physically there and seeing it and feeling that impact. So I think you have a localization issue versus a globalization issue with it, and there's two ways to think about that. Let me ask Julian, could you come in and just, if you could, I'm just picking you because you're in the upper right-hand corner.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for your presentation. I really enjoyed it. I also want to thank Hans, who invited me. So if not, I would not be here. And related to your question, I'm from Chile, and I think the challenge here is, as you are telling, I think this the COVID boosted our crisis, our own country crisis we were already having. And as listening to your presentation, all I could think about is that if we have as like a double crisis, well, we should have double the opportunities. So I think we need to adapt and take the advantage of this. We need human technology. I love the concept of what you said, connecting people, making a network, and this kind of network to, you know, break down the barriers that will arise in the short term.
Well, so let me ask you a question, Julian. So you're sitting in these meetings now where they're trying to figure out what to do with the Constitution and, you know, what level of equality we're going to talk about. Where does the discussion of the pandemic play into those discussions now, which wasn't there prior, but now we have this and there's more emphasis on, hey, this really impacted all of us. Do you think that there's an opportunity for more inclusion because of the pandemic in these discussions with the government and the people, or less?
I think there's always, I always try to think that we have an opportunity of inclusion, especially because even if we think different, what we want is the best for everyone in a deep sense.
Yep.
And in this scenario, when you get into an extreme of thoughts, of sensations, of anything, and of being afraid, then after the storm, there should be some kind of calm, and we should be getting more together.
I think the divide will be narrower. That's my gut feeling, is that people going into this from the inequality to those that have, you know, the inequality divide is going to go, you know what, we're actually, because of the pandemic, we're much closer and we should stay there. And if this country is going to rise, it needs everybody to work in a better relationship. I'm hoping. I think that's.
If I may?
Yes. Hi, Karen. How are you?
Yeah, good. I'm a little more pessimistic. This pandemic
Yes.
is going to have a huge impact on the economy. We are looking at probably unemployment of about 20%. The government has issued programs, relief programs for about 6% of GDP. Our fiscal deficit will increase. We're probably going to go out and get more public debt issued. So this is going to be a poorer country. And resources, at least, for instance, in the government was supporting entrepreneurship through several lines of programs, and was supporting development of blockchain and new technologies. But the money is now going to go and help unemployed people. There's not going to be, they already cut yesterday the money for studying abroad, for example. So no Chileans can go and study abroad paid by the government anymore. So this is going to be a poorer country. You have the issue of the dollar too. We started the year with 750 per peso. We're at probably 850 today. I didn't see how it closed. So that's a big issue too for the people who need the technology to do this, because you have to pay for it in dollars.
Right.
So there's a lot of consequences that the economic situation is going to have, and we're going to have to be extremely creative. Now, I don't think the social movement is going to stop.
Oh no, I agree. But I think there's going to be more. I think there's going to be more narrow. You know, more of a narrow of the gap as far as the discussion. You know, because it's. I can see it happening here. But and to your point, you know, Chile's not going to be alone on this, Karen.
No,
New York City is going to go bankrupt.
Yeah,
New York City is going to go bankrupt. And I have to tell you that there's a lot of people in the United States that saying, I'm not bailing them out, because over the past 6 years, they increased their budget by 26% when they should have been putting some money in the bank.
Right.
And so we're seeing that, you know, as a big issue here. But for the entrepreneur, what's really important now is for the startup community is the alignment of people within that family of entrepreneurs collectively working together for the resources that they all need, versus they cannot isolate. They got to work more closely together. So whether they're competitors in the same area, fine, be it. You're all working towards different, same solutions. Work together, bring those resources together. Because like you said, Karen, there's going to be a lack of it. So you've got to be creative, right? And that's what we just told the Small Business Development Center up in the city. He said, this is the time to get these organizations, these micro people in the startups and the entrepreneur positions to get together now, and use themselves as resources. Very critical.
Well, and then there's politics, but I'm not going to get into that one. You also have that big challenge over there, so,
Right.
but if you don't have, it's different in the U.S. because it's a federal.
Yeah,
so whoever is in power doesn't have much impact on, what happens.
But I have to say, dealing with Indonesia, I just did a class in India, one in Jakarta as well. So, I'm hearing the same thing, but I want to hear from some youth. So Perry, can you jump in and give me your view?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, personally, when the virus began and this pandemic started, at least from my point of view, the social unrest kind of disappeared for a bit and was nowhere to be seen. Of course, it's recently starting to come up again, where there's even people protesting together.
Mm-hmm.
But as what you asked, as entrepreneurs working together in order to come out forward from this recession, I have kind of mixed opinions and mixed feelings. Although I don't think as a community we are maybe empathetic enough in order to work together with our competitors. I do think that some people are willingly and they're open to make decisions and opportunities to help those who are in problems. At least with what I'm doing with one of my friends here, Lucas Odersen, we just started this new venture, which is an idea in order to connect through an online platform, people who feel lonely, such as people who live alone in apartments, in order to talk to others, to feel better and maybe have a better outlook throughout this pandemic.
Yep, and that's going to continue, right? And so it's that whole communication piece, and whether you're individuals or small business or larger businesses. For example, about a week or so ago, 10 days ago, I was on a call. This was all businessmen, and on the call was a privately held company, very large, multi-billion-dollar privately held company. And also on the call was a woman from the Middle East. And I loved that they shared insights together. So we had a multinational company with this woman who's this very smart startup entrepreneur sharing what they saw as issues that they had a hard time overcoming. And what I took away from that was that even the billion-dollar company was saying to me, I don't know how to do this. And they were willing to listen to this woman. To me, that said volumes about that organization, about recognizing the first step is that they have a weakness, and then being willing to listen to someone that could give them some insights. And that going forward is what's going to be needed, whether it's in Chile or Indonesia or in New York City. It's for me, you may have this idea. You've got to speak to people. Is it a good strategy? Confirm that. Okay, what am I missing? I'm missing some organizational pieces of this to put the pieces of the puzzle together. What's the speed to shelf in order to do this? And I think if you think that way, and again, that strategy cannot live alone. You've got to have the effectiveness within an organization. And it's a matter of putting those pieces together. It's critical. But I'm loving what I'm seeing out there, with these startups. We're going to look back in 5 or 10 years and go, wow, look what came out of this. And it was a matter of something they saw that we all didn't see.
Dan, what do you say if we go build on our strategies and we meet up again in a month or so to discuss again with you?
I would love it. I'll give you an update of where we are. I mean, this I'm stunned how fast what I'm working on is going. I'm stunned.
There's also Pablo Cazorla. I guess, do you have a baby there?
Yes, I do.
Oh, cool.
So he wants to give a final comments about which are the type of businesses we should look up now.
Okay.
With the baby, I think the baby's also adding some companies and industries.
Yeah, there's. I think the opportunities are the same in every country. Our social crisis was our pandemic, and I think it prepared us because since then we are working online and buying services, trying to have money in our pockets. So I think in some way it actually protected us, and it was a transition. And in that time of crisis, one of the winners were the security business. A lot of security implementation was selling like crazy, and I know US is selling guns like crazy as well. So when there's so much unemployment, robberies are going to go up till it's going to be much less safer, and the opportunity in that is the safety business, and that's one opportunity. Luxury business should go down, and more basic needs should go up. That's my take.
Yeah, and I was just reading something on the luxury business, and I was looking at this platform that just raised another 240 million. It's called Farfetched, and it's reselling of luxury products, and okay, they're taking advantage of a very fast raise of money because there's going to be a lot of product that's sitting in stores that nobody can get into. That's going to be discounted and getting out there, right? So those are the things that you have to sit back and say, okay, what am I not seeing here, right? What's missing? It's not the obvious. Everybody can see the obvious. You got to sit back and say, okay, what am I missing here? And you look out there, and when I look outside and I look at these guys building this parking deck, I go, this doesn't make sense to me. I'm not in the construction business, but I'm looking at it and saying, this building is going to be here for 50 years, 60 years. How are they going to convert that space? It's unconvertible, and it's a waste. And so maybe I should start a convert your parking space construction company or something like that. But those are the things that you got to ask yourself questions, and then how long is it going to last? What's the stickiness of it? Et cetera, et cetera. So I think for me, the first thing, like I said, is communication, right? Speak to people, consume everything you consume where your passion lies. Okay, you're going to find out globally what's going on because we're all sitting here reading it globally. And I look at it and I go, wow, that makes sense. I mean, even sitting here and jumping into the market when the market is way down, right? It's the same thing. It's just making these smart decisions based on what smart people say.
Awesome.
But I'd love to come back and have a catch up and say, and hopefully I put my email into the chat. If you want to hook up, if you want to find me on LinkedIn, I'd love to hear more about what you're doing and what pivots you're making, and then we should maybe put together just a little group. Giselle to say, hey, who wants to come back and share? And then we come back in and we show some best practices. Or even just create a Slack group, if you want to put a Slack group where we can drop stuff into.
Right. Awesome. Yeah, I reshared your email. And yeah, thank you so much. Big applause.
Great. Listen, thank you all. Just stay safe and communicate. That's the key.